Well, everyone, it's time for us to go ahead and talk about the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 3 and see how this phone holds up in 2022. Now, I will definitely tell you there are a few moving pieces with this phone, but if you want to buy it, links will be down in the description. You can get that from there. You can help support the channel at the same time. Now, with this phone, the successor of this device is coming about right around the corner, the Z Fold 4. I think it's coming out this week, so you may just want to go ahead and wait out until those specific phones come out, but either or, this device is still a very capable phone. It's going to be here for many more years to come, and honestly, this is the future. Now, I was able to buy this Galaxy Z Fold 3 for about $1,200 and something dollars. I think it was about $1,300 all said and done, so it's gone down from its $1,800 price, but it's going to go down even more in the used market, so you may want to wait out a little bit more to purchase one. That way they can go down even more in the used market as well, so that may be something you want to keep in mind. Now, this specific phone, as the other folds, do have a few different displays built in. So we have the main panel on the front that is a 6.2-inch dynamic AMOLED display, and it's pretty much called a coverage display. What's very good is that it does have a 120Hz panel, and it's actually not a bad panel at all. It's completely usable when it's pretty much like the cam, when it's pretty much in its clamshell mode, and I'm totally cool with how this phone, the front panel holds up, but when you flip it open, this is where things get even more exciting. You have that 7.6-inch foldable dynamic display, it's a 120Hz panel, and the resolution is actually pretty crazy. It's 1768 by 2208. So it is a massive panel for sure. And in my opinion, that is one of the best things to keep in mind as well. With this type of screen, in my opinion, it's still one of the best things to keep in mind. And I'll definitely say the panel of this thing, it's a 120Hz panel. It looks very good. And I'm definitely going to say it is one of its best features for sure. Now on the bottom, you do have the USB Type-C port, which is tremendous. And we do have the back of this phone, which is its frosted glass back. So personally, I think it feels very good. I don't really have too much to complain about it there either. And this phone, much like the other ones, we do have wireless charging and reverse wireless charging, which is really cool too. And we do have that triple camera setup as well. Now, as I've said before, when I've personally had this type of device, I had a tremendous time with it. I've had many different foldable phones and the flipping phones as well, and Samsung has always done a good job for the most part with their folding devices, except for the first one that they made that had that huge, issue. Since then, they've really made a great job and a great effort at improving every phone year after year. Now, I will say I wouldn't recommend buying this one right now, like I mentioned, just because the Fold 4 is around the corner, but if you want to buy it and you don't care about spending the craziest amount of money of all time, then I'd recommend going for it. But it really doesn't make too much sense to buy this phone if you don't care about the folding technology within it. Although this phone is like one of the most expensive phones you can buy, there isn't really a huge reason where this phone completely obliterates the competition. There aren't really too many phones competing in this sector. That's why these phones are so expensive, that's number one. But number two, a phone like a Galaxy S22 Ultra or even a Galaxy S21 Ultra of last year, it's going to be a much better phone than this one, and that is a substantially cheaper phone. So that is something I always have to remind people. Yes, these types of phones, they're crazy, they have such a different type of, layout, but features wise, I would recommend buying a Galaxy S21 Ultra or an S22 Ultra rather than buying this one if you don't care about the folding thing. So another thing I want to say, I'm pretty sure Samsung is trying to become the, go-to company when it comes down to these actual folding displays, because they probably want to make sure that companies like Apple or even Google or any of these other companies source their folding panels from Samsung. So again, I don't have any way to verify that. I'm just kind of saying that, because they make so many panels for other companies, I'm pretty sure they want to source these folding and flipping phones for those other companies too. So in terms of the outside, in terms of the bodies, that kind of covers it up for the most part. Now in terms of the camera setup, we do have a very interesting setup on this thing. It's a 12 megapixel wide angle lens, 12 megapixel telephoto lens, and a 12 megapixel ultra wide sensor. And we have a dual camera setup on the front. So the 4 megapixel camera is for the front camera, and that 10 megapixel wide angle lens is actually on the other camera. So there's two front facing cameras, one when it's closed, one when it's open. Both can do 4K at 30, which is awesome. But a big thing to keep in mind, like I said before, we can only do 4K at 60 on the back. Now, 4K at 60 on the back is totally fine probably for 99% of people watching this. Now, I would probably say, 80% nowadays. But when you keep in mind that the phone of the Galaxy S20 that came out in 2020, that phone had the capability of shooting 8K videos back then, it just kind of puts this phone in a weird situation where it's like, well, if that phone could film, that type of resolution from just a few years ago, why can't this phone do it, So that's kind of where we are. I think the camera setup on this thing is good. good, you know, that has a lot of features built in, and it's a good sensor. But like I said before, when compared to the Galaxy S22 Ultra or other phones like that, I mean, this phone doesn't even come close. I would say the S20 Ultra from 2 years ago is probably, actually almost 3 years now, and that phone probably has a better camera than this thing. So it really just depends on whichever way you look at it. Personally, I do think the Galaxy S22 Ultra is probably the better one here. Even the S21 Ultra has a better camera here. So that kind of covers up exactly how to kind of sum up this specific video. So with that camera out of the way, that's kind of how it's, you know, sum it up there. Now on top of that, in terms of future and reliability in the future and all that, this phone is also another interesting device, because although this phone's not going to be lasting forever, this phone is going to be lasting for quite a bit of time. It's not going to be outdated tomorrow. So when it comes down to the battery standpoint, so when it comes down to the software landscape in the future, this phone is still going to be supported, and I don't really have too much to complain about it in that standpoint either. Now in terms of performance, this phone has that Qualcomm Snapdragon 888 chipset inside of it with 12 gigabytes of RAM on both of the models. Now, I will say this phone is still a very good performing phone. That chipset inside of this thing has held the test of time for many, many years now. And as I've said before, that is a really good thing to keep in mind. You don't really want to buy a phone and already have it outdated. And that is exactly what's not happening here. This phone is still more than capable and still more than fast enough for pretty much everything everybody's going to do. So whenever I use something like this specific phone for really anything I was doing with it, whether it was playing super high intensive games or it was, you know, playing low intensive games or anything like that, this is still a very capable phone, and I don't really think anybody's going to have issues with the performance. Now, is it going to be as fast as the Galaxy S22 Ultra? Probably not. But that's okay, you know, it's still going to be, for a majority of people out there, it's going to be able to handle almost every single thing you throw at it. And that is the thing to keep in mind. You don't really need the fastest performing phone or the best chipsets if you don't really, you know, care about those kind of things. However, as I said before, if you're wanting to get a phone that is going to go ahead and kind of last you for quite a bit of time, it may make a little bit more sense to go ahead and buy something like a Galaxy S22 Ultra, because those phones are going to be lasting you a little bit longer. So I've never been the type of person to just continue just to wait and wait for the next phone, but looking backwards, the S21 Ultra has gone down substantially in the used market, and so has the S22 Ultra. So it's totally up to you, but when it comes down to the performance segment, I would kind of say this phone has a humongous edge when it comes down to pretty much, you know, looking at the used phone landscape and possibly buying one of those devices. And now, ending it off with the battery life, this device has the 4400 mAh battery inside of it. And as I've mentioned before so many times, that battery life is very good. This phone's battery life is still one of the best ones out there. Again, it's not going to outperform some of the other ones that maybe doesn't have a foldable display, but I still think for how, you know, big this phone is and how many features this phone has built inside of it, not only does it have a massive size battery inside, but it's also a very good performing phone as well when it comes down to handling that battery life, as well as how many features are built into this phone. So when it comes down to that kind of covers it up there as well. And honestly, I think this Galaxy Z Fold 3 is still completely worth it. I mean, it's a very, very good and capable phone. The only thing to keep in mind with this device is that this phone's successor with the Fold 4 is obviously going to be a better phone, but also the Ultra series from Samsung are still amazing phones with a crazy amount of capability. And there isn't really a reason why you'd want to buy the Fold phone unless you really cared about that folding design. If not, I would highly, highly, highly recommend buying the Ultras. I think those are way better phones in general. But if you want a standard phone like that, then go for the Fold. You can't really go wrong with it. So that kind of covers it up. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.